According to Oracle, a former senior employee took with him thousands of confidential documents, source code, project plans, customer data from his Oracle device, downloaded it, took it, and then joined Procore to build a rival product to the thing that he was working on over at Oracle. So to build a direct competitor. Surprisingly, Oracle wasn't too happy. What do you reckon? Pretty cut and dry?
It's got the evidence doesn't look too good. Thousands of documents.
Yeah, not legal, not a lawyer, but it doesn't look too good. So yeah. Welcome back to the Offsite Podcast, joined once again after a couple of weeks away by, cue the music, Olu, co-host Carlos. Cavallo, mate, how are you? Welcome back.
Thank you very much. It's good to be back. It feels like a long while since the last one. But yeah, how was it with Sam last week? It was Sam, wasn't it?
Yeah, we should you or I should go away more often. He's actually we just ride his coattails on the content.
I left two engineers unsupervised though, so who knows. But
shit would have got done. Yeah, probably stuff actually got done. It's like a Saturday on site when no one's there. You can actually do all the stuff that you're not supposed to do on the other days.
You mean your QSs weren't on site on a Saturday?
I'll give you a tip, mate. It's not the QSs we're worried about.
Very good.
It's the client, the safety team, this is quite an old school. I'll get in trouble for saying this, but yeah. Stuff got done. Things magically happen on Saturdays. People on construction projects will know. Things magically happen on Saturdays.
A lot of things happen when there's an incentivization
or night shift. Or night shift.
Yeah.
How did that pole get installed? Don't worry, it happened last night.
It's there. Yeah, good.
Very good. And so you were traveling around the world. You were in South Africa?
Yeah, no, saw Pretoria, Johannesburg, and Cape Town. It was a family wedding. A wedding of two quantity surveyors. So obviously it was a massive party.
I can't wait for the really years-long dispute working out who's paying for what.
Yeah. Luckily, I was a part of that discussion. But no, it was really good.
Welcome back. That's great. And you came back to the news you were hoping for.
The end of the world. Yeah. I don't think we should go too deep onto a gloomy horizon of the new US president. But I do think one thing I couldn't help but think about might form the basis of a topic in the future is
wall building.
Trump's, but yeah. Well, that's a big contract. Trump's very pro-American industry, pro-using like onshore companies. So it'll be interesting to see if you look at the split of like American versus European and other contractors operating in the US. Is it going to be harder for them to win large bids? Is he going to be pro-American companies delivering major schemes, putting more money back into US sort of industry? So it'll be interesting to see if he makes any changes on foreign companies bidding on jobs.
Do you reckon they care? Because it's not. I guess one perspective you could have is just like it's a service. Construction is a service provider. It's we come in and build the thing. Is there any risk of not developing intellectual property? It's like quite heavy to start the episode with, by the way, but this isn't the topic. This is the heaviest pre-topic we've ever had.
Yeah, it's also a topic I'd like to think about for a few minutes before.
Righto. Let's go. We'll put a pin in it. We'll come back to it. Righto.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've got other topics on the agenda this week. So we're going to kick off with actually what is a super interesting discussion with two contact giants going head to head in a legal battle. We're going to dive into the news of Oracle suing Procore for the alleged theft of insider trade secrets. Next, following that, we're going to go over some interesting points that we heard on a podcast recently from ex-Autodesk CEO about the right way to develop products for construction and engineering. And then finally, we are going to dive into UK contractor FN Conway, another local family-owned contractor being bought by a large multinational construction conglomerate in Vinci, and whether that is good for the industry. Off the bat, Oracle suing Procore. So they filed a lawsuit against Procore alleging case of trade secrets theft and breach of contract. So according to Oracle, a former senior employee took with him thousands of confidential documents, source code, project plans, customer data from his Oracle device, downloaded it, took it, and then joined Procore to build a rival product to the thing that he was working on over at Oracle. So to build a direct competitor. Surprisingly, Oracle wasn't too happy. What do you reckon? Pretty cut and dry?
It's got the evidence doesn't look too good. Thousands of documents.
Yeah, not legal, not a lawyer, but it doesn't look too good. So yeah,
and it looks like they can prove that these materials have been directly transferred onto a Procore issued laptop.
Yeah.
So that's
interesting.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I checked out the guy's LinkedIn. He went straight from one to the other. And he was clearly working on that product. So I'm surprised there wasn't any. So I don't know if a waiver was signed and if that, like, what do those waivers actually look like? This could be a lot deeper than what the article suggests, which is you stole some stuff. This could have, have some more sort of legs to it.
The good news is, as like a positive for Procore, if it is true, they definitely didn't try and cover it up. Because the guy directly came from the competing product, has literally, by the looks of it, like, I don't know how they can prove it, but yeah, it looks like downloaded all this information and then literally it's on the Procore device. Then they build a direct competitor. Yeah, I think it shows that they like stored them into he uploaded them into his personal like Google, Dropbox or Google Drive account. Yeah, it definitely doesn't look good, and it doesn't look like there's any cover up. And I wonder, is it like leave this is it leave this person out to dry and blame this person, or is it like how much is it the individual or the company?
And to elaborate slightly on the information that was taken, it's not just like playbooks and like stuff that like a lot of people would want to take because it's used, like it's a bit more sort of accepted and useful. It's actual source code and things like that. So there was
so just to give some background on it for those that know the product suite. So Oracle, which is a very large software company out of the US, has a relatively large AEC division, so the construction and engineering division. They own things like Primavera P6. They have a product called Textura, which is kind of like an ERP payments product, which is what Mark, the employee in question, was leading. He was an executive vice president or a VP in Oracle. Procore had been trying to build a competitive product for some time, and this is the bit I don't know. Articles are saying it was going slow, struggling, whatever. Came across and they built out this product, which eventually became Procore Pay, which is a like literally direct competitor to the Oracle product.
And then in terms of where we are, obviously they're going to court. Our Procore refused any access to the device in terms of forensic inspection. So you'd assume that's a default thing that your lawyers would tell you anyway, but that also doesn't look too good. But Oracle are no stranger to a court. In the last 15 years, they've been a bunch of times against companies like SAP, Google, and a couple of smaller companies. And they tend to win. there's only one or two examples of them not winning. So
what's the saying? If you can't beat them, sue them. I don't think that's the saying.
Yeah.
I just made that up. But
Yeah, I've not heard that one. I think it's join them, right? Sue them.
Maybe.
Yeah. So, but one thing anyway, I started to think about, because it's early doors, we can obviously speculate on some limited information as to what might happen. But in the event that Oracle are successful, I just did a little bit of research into like what the outcomes could be, other than like some sort of financial settlement. They could have the courts effectively remove the product from the market. So that'd be a big loss for Procore if that happens.
I don't think it would, but yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't then find an example of that happening. It seems to be settlements, because at the end of the day, they'll probably still argue that like it's only like a tiny bit similar rather than a complete like-for-like copy. So yeah, it looks like a settlement would be the most likely outcome.
The case that this reminded me of when I was reading it was a number of years ago. There was a really high profile case involving Waymo, which is a subsidiary of Google, which accused Uber of basically doing almost the same thing. So there was this employee called Anthony Lewandowski that left Google and Waymo, allegedly took thousands of these confidential documents, source code, etc. Started his own self-driving car startup called Otto, which was nice, my son's name. And then very quickly, Uber bought the Otto company for like $600 million or something crazy, clearly to get the IP from Google. And in that case, Waymo won the case, and Uber had to pay Waymo the equivalent of about $250 million in stock.
I hope they kept the stock.
Yeah.
It's a nice little investment, that.
Yeah. So you'd imagine there's some sort of calculated, if it is proven to be true at whatever level, it's probably some form of either royalty-based compensation or some like calculated penalty based on market share that it might have taken or how much it impacted their ability to go to market.
Yeah, there was another one, again, outside of construction, but a company called Zunum Aero. They alleged that Boeing used their trade secrets to develop some sort of hybrid aircraft.
So like in reverse. So these other two are like the big company suing the smaller company, but this is like in reverse.
Yeah. And they actually won. So they settled at like 80 million, but then it got overturned later because they failed to prove that the trade secrets were actually legally protected. So then you don't get in a whole legal bubble of, how
there'd be some people reading some contracts and insurance policies and everything right now. Yeah,
that'll be one boring room until the settlement. But
yeah. I guess watch this space, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Diving on. So recently, the Bricks and Bytes podcast, which, as a short aside, if you don't already subscribe or listen to it, I highly recommend it. The guys running it are putting an incredible amount of effort into creating a whole plethora of really interesting content around construction technology, and getting really high quality guests onto the podcast. So great work to the guys. Anyway, they recently had a conversation with the ex-CEO of Autodesk, Amar Hanspal. And he was talking about these 12 lessons that he had laid out recently about how to make products in construction technology well, I guess, as opposed to, the generic lessons of how to build product in other industries. So I guess what's unique to not just construction, it was AEC, which includes the design and architecture space. I thought they were interesting when I was listening to them. I went away and read them after the after the episode. I think we'll put the link in the show notes to the actual blog post. There are a couple that jumped out to me. If you want to dive through a couple of them, Carlos, you want to go first or me?
Yeah, happy to go. A couple stood out. The first, I was thinking about two of them in together actually. So there was one sort of referred to as the long game, and like it takes 7 to 10 years really to establish yourself within the AEC market, and the other was depth before breadth. And those two I was trying to think about together. A lot of startups immediately try and search for like a silver bullet or this viral marketing campaign that just allows you to go from 0 to 100 in months or even like 1 or 2 years. And I think we know more than most like how much time and work you have to sort of take to understand the customer, iterate the products, to get product market fit, because there's so many personas and sort of cogs in the works that it's not a quick and easy win. And I always have that big red flag moment when I see a startup that's relatively small announcing that they've got like 5 major projects, but they're in 5 different countries and they're on 4 continents, but really it's quite a sort of shallow deployment. So yeah, I think a lot of that will be driven by VCs wanting growth really quickly, and everyone's trying to raise cash. So they need this image that they're massive. But I think the depth before breadth is a massive thing. And it was a very sort of sensible view. This wasn't like a over the top. So maybe to give some context on the two that you're talking about. So the first in these, I guess, lessons or rules is this idea of the long game, where the adoption cycles are unique, and often it's uniquely slow compared to other industries, where you've got the dynamic of project-based procurement and project-based cycles. And you've got often industries and projects which are in a very high risk, low margin environment, especially on the construction side. And so the propensity and the availability of people's time, energy, and money to test a whole bunch of things that may or may not work exceptionally low. And the industry is naturally exceptionally referential in terms of deciding what things to adopt and not to adopt, more likely to listen to their colleague on another project than a million ads that you might throw at them, or a million podcasts you might go on and say how good you are, how much money you've raised. And so the long game idea is that if you are going to try and build something in this industry, you better be prepared to do the 7 to 10 year slog of continual effort and grinding, that you have to constantly be searching to improve. And he uses the idea of finding the source of the Nile. And it is a constant iteration of improvement of delivering, well, as we say internally, delivering value. And you can stack on top of that. And I quite like the saying he had, which was expect the punch. Because in that slog, not just as founders, but as a company, you're going to hit so many setbacks and obstacles, and it is going to be like, it's hard graft, right? You'll have loads of knockbacks. So it sounds obvious, but it is the reality. But going into it expecting you're going to be punched, so you're at ease with that. And that, just hurdles that you get over rather than, getting fairly knocked down and putting it in the too difficult bucket too early.
It's a good half of the lessons are basically expect this to take a long time. Expect you to have to grind at it for the long time. Why you
shouldn't invest in technology and construction.
And don't run out of money. That's like half of the lessons, which is very true. I think it's interesting what that means for anyone that's like an investor. And we're not investors in construction technology, but anyone that is an investor, I guess the typical venture funded pathway is raise money at a certain milestone with the goal of getting to this other milestone and then being able to raise, the next, level up in the game. And given you've got the burden of, or you've got the reality of these possibly slower adoption cycles, the need to not run out of money, and this other story of like, expect the punch. If you are in the space as a startup, you have to think really carefully about raising that first check, what you intend to do with it. Because if you are going to get on the raise the first check so I can get to the next check so I can get to the one after, you are kind of going against that set of rules. how long they're going to take, and then you execute perfectly, and everything kind of goes in your favor. But you better expect the punch as well.
So I'm just Googling sanguine.
Sanguine. It's a Spanish wine, I think. No.
Full-bodied. Yeah. It's
I learned that one from Greg, by the way. That one's a lesson from Greg from Nodes and Links.
I have to Google every other word that guy says just to keep up. Leads to a really, really punchy conversation. It would be interesting to understand, like, there are lots of construction focused VCs. Like, is their mindset actually on board with this? Because, like, if you're expecting 7 to 10 year returns, are they really in that mindset of raising a pool of cash every year and having that return out 10 years ahead? Because you're going to be raising a lot of money each year to keep it going before you're seeing anything substantial in the future.
Yeah, I'd love to see the actual portfolio and the investment book for a construction technology VC at some point, because there's this concept in venture capital, this idea of the power law, that like some small percentage of your investments are going to basically be where all the return is. And so you're basically you're kind of at the roulette table placing bets on numbers, knowing that you're going to lose most of them and hope one of them or two of them hit. And so that creates quite a large misalignment in incentives, because you've got, maybe it's 1 in 10. Let's say just hypothetically it's 1 in 10 is the one that you're expecting to return all of the fund and the investment. Then from the venture side, you are kind of expecting that 9 of them will middle, maybe some of them, like a third of them will fail, a third of them might, break even or something. From the company side, you're like all in, and you've got one chip on the table, which is that company. And so, yeah, you can definitely end up in this massive misalignment incentives where the company is like, awesome, we've got this investment, they believe in us, but like they're like, you're one of the chips on the table.
And are you the chip that they've already sort of slightly shifted aside?
Because
you're focusing on the top 5 or whatever. Yeah.
Sure. I think I definitely recommend that folks that take a look at it. It'll be in the show notes. The podcast as well is very interesting. I should have also noted that Amar, the chap that wrote it, had worked at Autodesk for 27 years and worked his way up to become the CEO. So definitely knows the industry. That's for sure. There wouldn't be many that had more experience than Amar.
Has he got a full head of hair?
Only a person that doesn't have a full head of hair is going to ask that question. I can tell you,
you've been wearing a wig for years, right?
You could have given me 70 questions to ask after that. And I don't think has he got a full head of hair would have popped in there.
Good.
It's interesting. Biases. That's a topic. All right. Final topic. Conglomeration of construction. That's another big word. Conglomeration. So a week or so ago, from when we're recording this, there was news that broke that the French construction giant Vinci is buying a prominent UK construction contractor, FM Conway. This is another in a kind of string of acquisitions made by large multinational construction or infrastructure companies buying or investing in domestic contractors in countries around the world. We talked previously about the Hochtief/Turner acquisition of Dornan as well, the Irish contractor. So I guess, first of all, reflecting on the acquisition of Conway, Carlos being a UK and London resident, where literally you can't walk like 2 minutes down the street and not see a Conway van. Yeah. And then maybe diving into the actual concept of all this international investment in local contractors.
Yeah. So, I mean, as you say, Conway, you see them everywhere. They're doing something like $500 million revenue, and they only do relatively small contracts, which shows the volume that they're churning out. Vinci, especially with organizations like Taylor Woodrow, which is a subsidiary, they do a lot in the highway space. They do have another subsidiary called Eurovia that does a lot of surfacing and sort of local highways type projects. So it seems to be a big focus in terms of the highway sector that they want to get into. And it makes a lot of sense to buy one of these local companies. They can have a relationship with every council. They can have a relationship with everyone that they need to do well within that space. There's that sort of strategic buy local, absorb that knowledge as a mechanism to grow within that space. And then also with the bigger subsidiaries like Taylor Woodrow who win highways contracts, they can then either become more competitive because they've got effectively sort of in-house, or if not, you've got fee on fee, which is still a winner for the group if you've got subsidiary subcontracting to a subsidiary beneath. So it seems like a sensible purchase if you're looking to expand that sector within the country. And FM Conway seem to have like a decent bit of R&D. I saw a couple of articles around like using recycled materials and doing work in that space. So maybe there's some interesting IP that they're also buying as part of the process that they can use elsewhere. But yeah, it's a well-known brand across the UK.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how prevalent this strategy is, and specifically how often Vinci as a company does it. The amount of I'll give you a quick guess. As you were talking then, I did some quick research, but I couldn't find the latest stats. But let's wind our way back to 2016, so quite a number of years ago. How many subsidiaries do you think Vinci as a company has?
They've got loads, because even if you drive through France, there's a Vinci logo on almost anything. Like even like maintaining airports and service station things. 10 more. Maybe at least one a year.
You're not even close. So back in 2016, they had about 1,900 subsidiaries.
1,900.
They own their. You could be.
Sorry, I meant 10 added since 2016 or whatever you said, not total.
No, total.
Right. Oh, sorry. Okay. Either way, I wouldn't have been guessing 1900s.
They own It'd be interesting to dive into the model of, they're a conglomerate that owns a lot of infrastructure. They operate a lot of infrastructure. They own construction contractors. They own like general contractors and specialty contractors. There's obviously some diversification strategy that is underpinning that, but it is amazing how extensive their reach is. I can think even in Australia of like 4 or 5 contractors in Australia and New Zealand that they own at different levels of the supply chain. And I think that exists around a lot of parts of the world. Their reach is massive. What do you think it means for Conway? By the way, actually, should give some context. So FM Conway is a family-owned UK construction and kind of maintenance, civil maintenance type contractor. They do a lot of small and road-based projects. It was founded by Francis Michael Conway. That's the FM. For those that didn't know, back in 1961. Has a turnover of about 600 million pounds a year and has about 2,000 people on the books. So yeah, what do you think that means for Conway? Like strategically trying to grow it? Is it then cut cost out? Are they, what do you think?
So you'd expect there will be some cost saving because there will be like head office overhead type costs that you could probably get some efficiencies out of by having a parent company. In theory, there would be a model to make it more profitable. With those additional resources, could FM Conway win larger contracts and go for more? Because you need a healthy bank balance for a lot of these capital schemes to even win them or even tender for them. So it might put them into that category of one of the bigger players. I'd imagine as an operator unit, I would bet that they'll leave it largely there with the name and the brand because it is a well-known, well-respected brand. I can't ever remember a piece of negative news about them. And if they've got that relationship across the board winning contracts, would you risk that by switching it into a Vinci brand in terms of actual name and everything else that comes with it?
That doesn't
Yeah,
appear to be their model. Typically, it's typically keep the brand intact and just stick it by Vinci. They change the logo. They normally make the logo a blue version of the old logo. Keep the name and stick by Vinci underneath is the typical playbook.
Yeah, but there's a huge spend on highways still in the UK. So are they now going to boost like a Taylor Woodrow their ability to win jobs by having like the expertise below in terms of supply chain? Does that improve their ability to win these bids? Is that actually the strategy?
I think that's quite interesting because I think I would say it's probably unlikely that the goal is to like change where the Conway brand is trying to like win work. You know, it's going to directly compete possibly with either like the Ringway, Eurovia, Taylor Woodrow, or Vinci Construction itself, or Vinci Ground Project. Like they've got one at every layer of the stack then. But I could definitely see in a market where maybe getting good subcontractors or good suppliers or whatever is harder, that kind of guaranteed supply from a recognized brand could help the GC, like the prime contractor, win work in that bid.
Yeah, for sure.
What are your thoughts on the idea of like all of these? If you're a country, if you're the UK, and you've got all of these international contractors buying up your construction, family-owned, locally owned contractors, is it a good thing? Does that mean more investment into the country, or is it a strategic risk for the country that it doesn't have locally owned and controlled ability to build infrastructure?
It's a big question.
That's what we do. We do the big questions and then we guess the answers.
Yeah. So, no, it's an interesting question because, like, if you look at major schemes here, like most contractors are foreign owned or they're not based in the UK, and that's a good thing. It encourages competition. Like, it brings in expertise. It makes sure that we have this competitive market. Yes, more and more British firms being bought up by these huge conglomerates and taking the profits back to other organizations. Everyone's going to have a view on that. Yeah, it's whether they protect those firms and protect the jobs. That's the most important thing, really. And if one of these firms now go under and it's actually part of a foreign-owned conglomerate, do the government help? I mean, they've kind of taken a stance now not to really bail out these companies anyway, but you would expect them to be a bit more resilient being part of a huge organization if they have bad years and bad contracts. So I think that's a good thing. And if they can grow the businesses, you take the jobs and everyone being able to work on these schemes over like profit staying on our shores or however people want to sort of name that as. So yeah, I think it's a good thing. It's stability and longevity, I guess.
At the top end of the project size, so at the very large projects, there is as you kind of alluded to, there's this the need as you get very large projects to have meet certain financial requirements in order to be able to bid and deliver those projects. And so often the playbook is the big infrastructure construction conglomerate like a Vinci can buy a local subsidiary that wouldn't have been able to bid for a job and give them the financial wherewithal and the expertise to bid on those projects, which seems like a logical set of behaviors. And as the country, that kind of gives you more competition for the project, which should get you a lower price. Do you think it's I'm going to follow up with one last big question before we wrap. Do you think that is contrary to? Do you think that the country and the delivery authority would be better served by making the project smaller, so that the local contractor could bid for it without having to be bought? Like, are we getting lazy and just packaging projects up into massive mega projects because we couldn't be bothered to do the individual procurement and design beforehand?
So that's an even bigger question than the last one you asked. You can just imagine immediately if you slice these massive schemes into more and more, you've got claims, you've got overheads, all of that world gets horrible.
That's what's happening though, because all you're doing is just sticking a subsidiary in Vinci, of Vinci in the middle, and they're slicing it and doing the claims, and so it's happening somewhere.
But to combine two of my claims to make one big claim, if FM Conway do have, I mentioned maybe they've got like some techniques or materials that is sort of new and efficient and things like that. So let's just say they have a superior product. And now they have the bank balance behind them to tender for anything. Could they start going to national highways with like framework contracts to do very large scale stuff across all of their sort of tier one contracts of work? So you could really start bidding for what is in theory billions of pounds spread across lots of schemes with a product that is superior. It kind of gives them that boost to be able to go and do that if they have a superior product. So I think they could win very big contracts with the client organizations to work within frameworks. I'd be surprised if we see an FM Conway moving into the sort of main contractor space. Tarmac sort of tried that a few years back, and I think they've reverted back to what they do best, especially as Taylor Woodrow is kind of a highways business within anyway. So would you try and compete? Yeah.
You've definitely Donald Trump. That was nothing to do with the question that I asked, but it was very interesting.
You are welcome.
Wonderful. Well, we're definitely at time. So it's lovely to have you back. And why don't you read us out, mate?
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, everyone, for tuning into today's show. If you did enjoy today's episode, please do think about liking the video or following us on your chosen podcast platform. We really do appreciate your support, and we'll catch you all next week.
Bye-bye.